boys and girls. Thank you for coming back to Story Time. And today, we're talking about Jesus walking on water. It's coming from Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. Jesus was alone on a mountain above the Sea of Galilee. He had talked to crowds of people that day, and he fed them the miracle lunch. I know you remember the miracle lunch, right? The 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. I know you did. The crowds of people were now tired and they needed to rest. So they walked one way, walking along the shore to head back home. But Jesus told his disciples to get on the boat. And the disciples always listened to God because they trusted him and believed him. The disciples got into the boat and started across the Sea of Galilee. Jesus, however, stayed behind to pray. He prayed day and night. If Jesus thinks it's important to pray, shouldn't we? I think it's very important to pray because I love Jesus and I need his direction. And I always want to talk to him to make sure I'm doing what is right. We can talk to Jesus about what we do all day. We can tell him we are sorry for what we have done wrong. He will forgive us. We can't see him, but we can talk to him. While Jesus was praying, the disciples went far out into the water in their boat when suddenly a big storm started. It rained and the waves got bigger and higher. As the storm grew stronger, the boat tossed back and forth. I would have been scared, I'm just saying. The disciples rowed the boat, pulling on the oars as hard as they could. But because of the strong winds and the high waves, they could not get very far. The disciples were scared. I would have been. Would the boat tip over? Would they all drown? Even though Jesus was far away on the mountain, he knew what was happening because Jesus knows everything. He knew the disciples were rowing as hard as they could without getting close to the shore. The storm was too strong for them. Jesus knew he must go to them. How would Jesus get way out into the sea where the boat was? Remember, Jesus can do anything. He can do things that people cannot. He can do miracles, remember? Let's just thank God for the miracles. Jesus stepped out into the water and began to walk on water, walk on top of the water as if it were land. Could you do that? Can I do that? No. Jesus could. When the disciples saw Jesus walking toward them on top of the water, they did not know who it was. It was very dark and they had never seen anyone walk on water before. Now they were really scared and startled. What or who was that on the water? Jesus spoke to them. Don't be afraid, it is I. That is such a common sentence. Don't be afraid, it is I, Jesus said. Peter, who was one of Jesus' disciples, recognized Jesus' voice, but Peter still could not see Jesus clearly. Lord, Peter called out, is it really you? Tell me to come to you on the water. Peter knew that if he could walk on water, then it had to be Jesus. Who was helping him do it? Come, Jesus said. Peter stepped out of the boat onto the water, trusting that Jesus would take care of him. The water held him up. Peter took a step toward Jesus and another step and another. Peter also was walking on water just as if it were land. Thank you, Jesus. Peter was looking at Jesus while he was walking on the water. But Peter began to look around at the waves and the storm. He saw the waves rolling up and high all over him. Peter heard the wind roaring and he saw how terrible the storm was all around him. Peter stopped looking at Jesus He stopped trusting Jesus to help him walk on the water. Peter began thinking how bad the storm was. When Peter stopped trusting Jesus, he began to sink into the water. "Lord, save me," Peter cried out. And what do you think Jesus did? Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught Peter, helping him up. "Why did you stop trusting me?" Jesus asked Peter. "Why did you doubt that I would keep you safe?" Jesus helped Peter get into the boat and climb back in. When they were both back in the boat, the storm suddenly died down. The disciples knew that a man could not walk on water. Only Jesus could do that because he is He. He is Jesus, a miracle worker, the Messiah. The disciples said to Jesus, "You certainly are the Messiah." Sometimes we are like Peter though. We believe God will take care of us, and then when we start looking around, we get scared. Can God take care of you even when your room is dark? Yep, He can. You can trust Him even though you can't see Him. He will take care of you. I know God will take care of you every minute of the day or night. Remember Jesus said, "Fear not, for I am with thee." Now it's question time, boys and girls. And question number 1, did Jesus know what was happening to the disciples? I give you some time to think about it. Remember, Jesus knows everything. You're absolutely right. Yes, He did. Question number 2, how did Jesus get to the disciples without a boat? He stepped out onto the water as if it was land. Question number 3, who tried to walk to Jesus on the water? Peter. See you next time, boys and girls.